So I'm Stefan Tompson. We're here in a series of discussions with experts from all 12 of the 3Cs member states. And today we're speaking with Svetoslav Malinov from Bulgaria. Svetoslav, maybe we could start with a little bit of an introduction from you about who you are, what you specialize in, just to give us context for the discussion.
Of course, so my name is Svetoslav Malinov, and I'm an expert in the economic program of the CSD Center for Study of Democracy in Sofia, Bulgaria. My main point of focus at the moment is about disinformation, specifically coming from Russia, due to the specific political atmosphere, if I may say, throughout the whole Central European region, but especially in Bulgaria. But also, of course, I'm really involved into any geopolitical issues, such as, of course, the interesting topic about the 3C initiative.
Excellent. Wonderful. And yeah, disinformation is really such a crucial topic at the moment, given the context, and of course, given what's happening now with energy prices. We're seeing it certainly in Poland, with a lot of pressure coming and trying to essentially. I think that's the real kind of subtlety of Russian disinformation. I know we're slightly off topic, but just before we dive into the 3Cs, one of the real kind of subtleties of Russian disinformation is that it always bases, or very often tries to base itself on truth, and then essentially extenuate that. So for example, the rising prices we're seeing in Poland, prices are indeed rising, um, but then essentially adding that pressure, and using that backbench of truth and adding in an angle. It's so subtle, that's kind of the real. In a sense, one has to give credit where credit is due. That disinformation is really powerful and very well done, and and hence so dangerous. Actually, I hope we'll be able to bounce back on the disinformation, and especially on the Russian pressure, because I think there's a lot of it involved in some of the aspects of the 3Cs. But let's take it a step back. Bulgaria, that's your perspective, and obviously my questions will be all around trying to get the Bulgarian perspective, and my questions will be coming from a point of reference of Poland. Um, but we'll try and make it about the region as a whole. And I think my first question is primarily around the current economic cooperation in the region. And especially from a Bulgarian perspective, if you could give the background of what the economic cooperation with other countries is currently, for Bulgaria, where those close economic and business ties are, what countries those relations are already exist within, and kind of what the hopes and aspirations are, the Bulgarian hopes and aspirations in terms of economic cooperation with other 3Cs members are in the coming years.
Absolutely. So I just want to ask, is it okay to start a bit general with the 3C initiative, just to give yeah, absolutely. So it's
Absolutely.
really it's important to start with the fact that the 3C initiative was born in 2015 and launched in 2016, and it the whole thing actually happened out of shared interest in developing the transport, enriching digital connections on the European Union's north-south axis, which is namely between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and the Black Seas.
Sure.
So, within the context of the European Union, the countries in the 3Cs initiatives have stood actually out for many years for their above average rates of economic growth, and as such, they offer investors potentially higher rates of return. Um, Therefore, by working together and pursuing similar policies, these countries should make the region more attractive on the global financial market, which I will actually cover if I have the possibility a bit in more depth later throughout the
Sure.
interview. But therefore, it is logical that although the project includes investments from member states as well as partner nations, and of course, as well the European Union as whole, the fund is intended to attract also large private sector funding and become commercially viable with emphasis on transparency and professional managerial practices, which is really important, especially for Bulgaria, the last part. And regarding the current state of economic cooperation within the region, of course, you've probably heard or even seen that there was a big announcement regarding the transatlantic cooperation between the 3C initiative countries and the United States during the opening of the 3C summit in Riga, Latvia, I think, yeah, late June this year. And at the meeting, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken actually confirmed that the United States will give financial aid to the 3C initiative investment fund, and pretty much emphasized, which is connected in a bit with this information, that the Putin's war of choice against Ukraine will make the role of the 3C initiative even more important throughout the next few months in the near future, and that the United States will actually commit to continue to secure major financing for the 3C investment fund. And even during the fund, it actually happened a few hours after this video statement, it became clear that the US International Development Finance Corporation and the 3C Initiative Investment Fund have actually agreed to a term sheet that will actually form the basis of an agreement in which DFC will provide up to 300 million of financing to the 3C Initiative Fund. And actually, such financing will definitely help support the three main goals of the 3C initiatives, which are the energy and infrastructure investments, as well as the IT infrastructure. And it will actually facilitate energy diversification and improve the connectivity in the 3Cs region, which is a huge issue that will actually has to be resolved in the future. And furthermore, it will help to reduce the socio-economic gap that actually happens between the members of the 3C initiative, most of them, of course, with other member states of the European Union. So just to conclude with the question, the substantial investment that is coming from the United States, from DFC, would bring the fund's capital commitment to approximately 1.3 billion euros. And in my opinion, having the backing of the DFC will certainly further strengthen transatlantic business and general European cohesion, especially here in Bulgaria. And energy and geopolitical ties also, which is crucial, especially with our more specific relations with Russia, of course. And yeah, this will also promote energy security and definitely aid to counter the Russian aggression in Europe, whether it's, let's hope, not physical or, as for now, only disinformation and throughout the media.
Sure, thank you. That's really useful context for the rest of the discussion. In terms of kind of taking it down a level, so we have 12 countries, and one of the things that has transpired from other conversations is, we're all part of the same region, so Central and Eastern Europe. We all share very similar history in the sense of having mostly Soviet-imposed communism, aside from Slovenia and Croatia, which were under Yugoslavian rule and under Yugoslav communism, and Austria, where the Soviet forces departed in 1955. But there is a broad kind of rallying element, a sense of similar experiences. But ultimately, one of the things that transpires despite that is that actually we don't really know each other that well, right? So that there's a sense of, sure, the Baltic Three, the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, small countries, very close together. They kind of really, there is a sense when one talks to them that, yeah, that they're very involved in each other's affairs and business and politics. And it's kind of like a real little sort of block and friendship group going on there. And then, but the rest of us, and I think when I think of Bulgaria, obviously the association and the geographical association is to Romania. You entered the European Union together. So I think maybe there's a bit of an idea that Romania and Bulgaria are sort of quite close, and that they are two countries that do know each other quite well. But maybe what I'm trying to get to is kind of, if you could give me an idea of where the main business and economic links are of Bulgaria with other 3Cs countries, and the sort of sense of, also would be really useful to get an idea of kind of where those relations, those personal relations, because ultimately business is built on that, right? And political ties and all of that does depart usually from a place of people knowing each other.
Definitely, yeah. Uh, well, I have actually some recent examples from the research that I did, especially it's actually connected because normally with Romania and Bulgaria, the most important projects that are developing even further now are specifically about infrastructure. So what I read, which was really interesting for me because this is mainly an initiative coming from the 3C, from the 3C initiative. It's a recent example that is connected with the largest Polish locomotive leasing company, which you might probably heard about that. It's called Cargo Unit. So
Sure.
actually, the company is expanding its activity to the Romanian market after delivering a state-of-the-art new class locomotive model. It's interesting that it's actually a leasing company. So from what I understood, they don't sell it, but actually just lease it to the country for a specific time period. And this move was actually part of Cargo Unit's more extensive expansion process, which includes Romania and Bulgaria, and which was set to develop its activities even further across the Central and Eastern European region. And I'm actually talking, as I said, about Cargo Unit because it's owned by the 3C initiative, and uh, and it's sponsored by the 3C Initiative Investment Fund, which pretty much is the investment arm of the 3C initiative.
Sure.
So, of course, Cargo Unit aims to fulfill some of the most important goals for the 3C initiative, but I think that pretty much serves as a glue for actually through this type of project to pretty much create new business and infrastructural ties between Bulgaria and Romania, which is really important because although we've come together in the European Union, both of the countries, it's still we're not in really. I think that the 3C initiative could be a great could actually serve as a great catalyst to improve the business relations and to actually create more space for great projects. And this is one of the of those projects that I think can really link Bulgaria and Romania even more with within the 3C initiatives, and of course
Sure.
to develop their infrastructure more. And I have one other example, which is actually it's actually connected with the Austrian company that's NRE Power Holding. I think it's pretty recent news that it actually already it's actually present this company in the market of the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Bulgaria. And they just recently, I think, around the end of June, beginning of July, they signed an agreement to acquire the portfolio of a renewable energy project owned by Canadian stakeholders in Romania for a total price, I think, approximately around 70 euros. And of course, from 2021, Enri's main financier is the 3C Initiative Investment Fund. So its strategy, it's actually aimed at expanding renewable energy projects in Central and Eastern Europe. So again, these are the two examples at the moment that I can give about infrastructure, road infrastructure, and of course the train, the locomotive case, and about energy related issues. That these are some things that the 3C initiatives can actually develop further the cooperation between Bulgaria and Romania.
Sure, but aside, but expanding from the relations between Bulgaria and Romania, what are the sort of, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a sort of in depth uh, piece of analysis, but just generally, um, what countries within the three Cs does Bulgaria have sort of closer economic ties with? Are there? I mean, Bulgaria is one of these places. I think in Poland, um, Bulgaria is mostly associated with summer holidays. There's the Złote Piaski is a very popular destination for Poles. There's a lot of them head there in the summer. So I kind of in the kind of in mainstream culture, that's kind of the main association to Bulgaria. And this interview isn't at an expert level. We're trying to sort of popularize the three C's and bring it to a level of understanding that is kind of accessible to lay people, right? So it would be interesting to get a sense of where you think these Bulgarian ties are, what countries in the three Cs you have closer ties with, aside from Romania, of course. Are there countries specifically within the three Cs that Bulgaria has some closer ties with than others, or not really?
Well, actually, to be fair, I it's not my really how to say my field of expertise, but I would say that there isn't like really specific countries that we have really traditional yeah cooperation within the 3C initiative, and I think this is an ongoing. It's actually a possibility, especially with the things happening all around the world geopolitically. It's a really great opportunity to actually increase our cooperation. But from from just personal point of view, I think that probably the most closest we are is with Austria, due to the we are like um, shared, so to speak, trade history.
Sure.
And especially, as you said, for example, even because I'm from the seaside in Bulgaria, especially uh, the tourism domain, there are a lot of
Sure.
Polish citizens, also people from Slovakia and from the Czech Republic. So I would say that these are, yeah, we don't have like really specific business, like business relations or trades. Of course, we're part of the European Union, but again, it's not my point of expertise, field of expertise. But I don't think we have like really um, strongly developed business relations. But again, I'm really eager to emphasize that I definitely think that the 3C initiative will be a really great opportunity for this to change.
Well, this is actually kind of it really takes us to the next question I had, which is a really important part of this discussion, is what can be done, especially from a Bulgarian point of view, what can be done to increase and speed up this integration? Because intuitively, I kind of exactly what you said is that Bulgaria and Romania are these sort of two countries that are obviously quite closely connected, interconnected, and in many ways integrated within obviously NATO, within the European Union, within the three Cs. But I do have that sense that Romania and Bulgaria are sort of these two players on the side, and that kind of the same way there's the Visegrad bloc, so Poland, Slovakia, Czechia, Hungary, and then you have the Baltic bloc, and then you have Slovenia, Croatia, and then sort of Austria as a kind of slight outlier. What can be done to speed up this integration, this economic integration? Um, what do you see from the Bulgarian point of view would need to be done by other member states to kind of you know sort of bring it all closer together?
Absolutely, that's a really important question, as you said. And I will speak about Bulgaria, but I think it kind of overlaps with with my opinion of what the whole 3C initiative should do as a collective mechanism, so to speak, to progress even further and actually all of the members of the initiative to benefit. So it's actually my opinion is that in order to have further success, the 3C initiative really needs to take a collective cooperative approach that recognizes each member's individual strengths. So, actually, together, the 12 countries of the 3C initiative account for almost 30% of European Union territory. I think around the 22% of the population, but only about 14% of the GDP of the Union.
Sure.
And one of the reasons for this low percentage is the current state of infrastructure, as I mentioned before. And it's good that there might be some progress with Bulgaria and Romania connecting the 12 countries, because from historical point of view, most infrastructure in the regions runs east to west, and this actually bolsters greater regional trade and cooperation. And I think that there is an urgent need to align policies among the 12 countries, but of course also of Bulgaria, to create a better joint investment environment, which also includes to align our our politics, the Bulgarian politics, with the policies of the European Union. And instead of competing for investment, which is often happening here, uh, we actually really need to work together so that everybody has something to gain. And as I said, I think it's key to recognize each country's most vital strengths. And I truly believe that each of the members could find its niche because, yeah, for example, Latvia's leader in the field of engineering, Lithuania's innovating the biomedicine domain. And Estonia, I think it's a world-renowned fact that is well ahead of the other members in the IT sphere.
Indeed.
And also, of course, this is really vital for each country of the initiative to actually understand that. But the tricky part is to successfully spread this message, especially here in Bulgaria, because to involve all member states, I'm not even talking about the internal mobilization that has to happen, because, for example, you probably know Bulgaria is facing yet again other elections in few months. It's really important to the members of the initiative to realize that it's a collective mission and there's a higher goal, staying unified, which will attract more investors in Bulgaria and, of course, in the region. And yeah, just to conclude with this question, I find this to be extremely beneficial because this year's gathering in Riga appears to have placed the 3C initiative and, of course, Bulgaria on the international agenda, not only because of not only because Ukraine was offered partnership status
Indeed.
despite not being a member of the initiative, but because it is crucial to explore the best ways to connect Ukraine with the rest of Europe. And even Ukraine's president, you might have seen the video, Zelensky actually addressed the summit via video, stating that the 3C initiative was his country's connection with the free world. And I actually agree on that. I don't think it's just beautiful words, because the supply of weapons to Ukraine, the supply of fuel, the fuel transport flows, the green corridors for the export of Ukrainian food, the migration of people, all this occurs through the territory of the 3C initiatives and, of course, through the territory of Bulgaria. So just to conclude the question, I think I think it should overlap what Bulgaria aims and tries to actually gain from the 3C initiatives and, of course, give with all the other 11 members.
Yeah, I really agree on that. And actually, just bouncing back on that, it's the geopolitical situation. Obviously, in many ways, the tragedy of Ukraine, of being invaded by Russia. Uh, the on one hand, this terrible tragedy for Ukraine, which is, being invaded, suffering, having its territory taken over, and people dying, um, has also been, as an unintended consequence, has actually been catalyzing and speeding up integration of our countries of Central and Eastern Europe. And obviously us, Bulgaria and Poland, as well as the Baltic Three, Romania and Czechoslovakia, being these NATO frontier countries, being the eastern flank of NATO, being the EU's eastern border, being that we've kind of had to adapt to the situation, and it's led tragically, because obviously one doesn't want to frame Ukraine's tragedy in this sense, but it has ultimately been uh, a very important shift for us and a very important signal that if we don't do something now, we could be next. And also, obviously, I also think that something you started saying, but just to really reiterate it and reinforce it, our countries have been at the forefront of the humanitarian aid, of the corridors, of the supplies, of the supply of weapon, the supply of fuel, the supply of aid generally. And that's something that's kind of really interesting, I think, and takes me to my next question, which is sort of what we started talking about, which is what are the opportunities that the region currently has in terms of economic potential for integration. Aside from, obviously, we've kind of spoken about the conflict and the invasion of Ukraine by Russia as being a catalyst. Are there any other things that you see that are sort of opportunities for us at the moment?
Absolutely, and it's again a great question and also really interesting topic because, as we actually mentioned from the beginning of the initiative, there are differing perspectives in regional politics that hinder the rapid adoption of the project throughout all the members. And although collectively the nations of Central Europe represent a significant market and workforce, the countries there differ greatly when it comes to size, needs, priorities, and even if I might say culture.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
So an
definitely.
interesting,
There's
definitely,
actually, this is something that's important. Is yes, we have a similar anchor in the sense of our historical experiences and of a sense of historic injustice that our region is underdeveloped in comparison to the West. But ultimately, we are all actually quite different from each other. I sorry, just to bounce in there, but yeah,
absolutely,
definitely,
no, you're
yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Which is really, which is fascinating in a way, but unfortunately, it doesn't help with the whole initiative to be adopted in the smoothest way possible. But that's the beauty of it, of course. And actually, an interesting take on the possibilities of the initiative that I actually haven't come across as often as I would want is that actually the 3C initiative offers the states and of course the United States and Europe an alternative engagement model to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative in Central Europe and Beijing 17+1 cooperative development framework. And yeah, this is, in a way, it could be, that's a whole other topic of conversation. It could be connected with the situation in Russia, how even Russian Chinese relations change, especially during the last month, I would say. But in my opinion, the recent developments have placed renewed focus on the um, 3Cs initiative. And one reason is exactly the growing concern about Chinese investment in the region. So I think it's not a huge surprise for anyone that Beijing has heavily promoted cooperation through its massive scale economic projects and development programs, especially in Central Europe. And at the same time, just a few major programs came to fruition from in Central Europe and coming from the European Union. And it's also important to note that it's actually that Europeans become increasingly worried about security issues related to the infrastructure of China, such as for example, the deployment of the 5G networks.
sure,
There are some real, worries throughout the citizens in the region, and many Central Europeans actually had negative reactions towards Beijing, not, as I said, condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine and not cooperating in effort to restrain Putin and the Kremlin in his Kremlin. So it's safe to say that China is no longer, at least that's my opinion, it's no longer that welcomed in the region, and their huge investments aren't seen as the uh, only possible help that they would gain. And supporting this claim is actually the fact that in 2021, Lithuania withdrew from the 17+1 framework. Latvia and Estonia formally did so, I think, earlier this year. So other Central European nations are also considering withdrawing, and several have
sure.
even downgraded their level of senior official commitments to the forum. And arguably, I think that the Chinese initiative is at death's door right now, which should be a signal for the collective West, so to speak, that the time might be right for a major US and Western European effort to counter Chinese investments. And this can absolutely happen through the 3C initiative. Because feeling the Beijing bridge as 16+1 disintegrates, because it's 70+1, because Greece came in 2019, offers a clear and immediate opportunity for the 3C initiatives. As you said, what's happening in Ukraine is a humanitarian crisis and it's awful. But in a way, I wouldn't say blessing in disguise because these are not the right words, but definitely gives
One
the
has to be
opportunity.
very delicate with words here, but yes, obviously,
Absolutely.
I understand the
Absolutely.
sentiment.
And while, yeah, so it will give immediate opportunity, the current political situation in Europe, to the 3C initiatives to actually assist with the reconstruction of Ukraine and also tackle Russia's aggression and further develop the energy, IT, and infrastructural sector of the countries. And of course, the European Union is going to take a leading role in the latter. But I think that the 3C initiative is one of the tools that it will have at its disposal. It's important to create, to actually use this tool as best as it can and to actually develop further its mechanisms. And I think it's a great opportunity, as I started at the beginning, to actually align the EU and the 3C initiatives politics, because the opportunities are definitely there.
Sure. And Svetoslav, continuing on this, what role could Bulgaria play in all of this? I mean, to kind of, because obviously it's 12 countries, it's a lot of countries. You hinted at it by talking about some of the specializations of each country. Um, what what could Bulgaria's kind of what is Bulgaria's edge here? What is the role? Uh, what sphere of this could potentially sort of Bulgaria lead in?
Well, I'm not sure specifically about leading, but because I do kind of, uh, that's my opinion, but I think that the multi speed Europe model should be, in a way, utilized within the 3C initiative states. And what I mean is that it makes sense that, for example, Poland and Austria, the countries with the highest annual GDP in the region, to make hefty investments in other member states. I think this will be beneficial. But what I think is that there might be a chance for cooperation, and I'm again, it's not my field of expertise, but I'm sure there is, but it can definitely be strengthened between in the IT sectors of Bulgaria and Estonia, for example, because although Estonia is worldly renowned for its IT developments, Bulgaria actually has a lot of new uh, companies and also foreign investment in this sector. So I think this is a great opportunity at the future in the future to actually pretty much bolster Bulgaria's know-how into this sphere, and it actually can definitely, I'm sure that it can be also beneficial for Estonia. But as I said, this might be this might happen if there is this kind of a model of multi-speed Europe that will be applied in the 3C initiative. But to answer your question in pretty much to summarize it in one sentence, I think that the IT sector is something that Bulgaria can hopefully even take lead within a few years when things normalize within the country. Yeah, because there are many possibilities, and I know for a fact that there is huge foreign investments. So yeah.
And to sort of come back to where we started, have you seen any examples of disinformation, of Russian disinformation aimed specifically at attacking the initiative? Is that something that you've observed in your professional life?
Well, actually, to be fair, specifically about the 3C initiative, I haven't seen a lot of disinformation narratives, but this might be due to the fact that we mainly monitor. My work is to mainly monitor Bulgarian media, and from when I started a few months ago in the Center for Study of Democracy, it's actually uh, all the pro-Kremlin media talks about the war in Ukraine, other type of conspiracy theories, which are mainly aimed at uh, to discredit the European Union and NATO and Bulgarian politics, especially in the last turbulent few months here in the political life in Bulgaria. So I actually haven't come across any concrete disinformation narratives which are aimed at actually discrediting the 3C initiative. But that's a really good question, and I will definitely keep an eye on about it because, of course, as we've talked in the last uh, half an hour or so, it's really important because this is not only connected to Bulgaria. These disinformation narratives can actually spread throughout the whole region. And again, this is a different topic, but Bulgaria is really susceptible to the Russian disinformation, but this could be said in a way. There are many reasons for almost all of the 12 member states of the initiative, probably without Austria. And yeah, so this is a really good question, and I will definitely follow up on that.
And my final question is a more sort of personal question. I'm obviously from the Polish perspective. I think there's a great sense, especially in my generation. I think we're a similar age, so our generation, there's a great sense of enthusiasm, of hope, of there is we are going somewhere. Our generation is going to be better off than our parents' generation. This is something that's deeply contrary to what's happening in the West currently, where we have a period of a sort of economic stagnation, of a plateau, of people sort of essentially our generation in the West is probably going to be worse off than their parents, which I think is a very, very that shift in mindset is it's such a profound shift between East and West, where suddenly Central and Eastern Europe is kind of the youth is finding itself in a very different situation and mind frame from our Western friends and allies. Um, so as I was saying, from my perspective, I'm really very optimistic, despite obviously the geopolitical turmoil, despite all that's going on. I was wondering what the general mood is, and I think when I say that I'm optimistic, I'm also speaking about my generation in general in Poland. I think there's a profound sense of hope because we're going somewhere, and the geopolitical turmoil hopefully is a temporary um, event. What's the mood like in Bulgaria? And from your personal point of view, is do you also share that optimism? And is that something that's shared across the young people in Bulgaria?
Well, definitely from my point of view, from uh, the profession that I have chosen to follow suit, I think I am optimistic, but I have to say that things, especially with the geopolitical and historic situation with Russia in Bulgaria, things I think will develop for the better, but it will take a lot of time because the issue is that we're really, especially about what I'm doing, the disinformation narratives and the whole pro-Kremlin propaganda that is spread throughout Bulgaria. It's really ingrained in our culture. And for example, a lot of I know we're talking about us, the young generation, but a lot of older people really still do not see the. I mean, it's quite normal that they're here in Bulgaria that people don't see the European Union as something beneficial for Bulgaria. And I think that to answer your question, yes, I think that I am optimistic and I think this generation will bring the change. But unfortunately, I think it will happen slow. And I'm sad to say, but I'm not sure that every how to say every young man or woman are really optimistic uh, and think that actually things will go better because again they don't have faith in the institutions here in Bulgaria, which is the probably again another topic, but it's the biggest issue. They don't have uh, they actually don't trust the media, so it's really hard to actually. I am optimistic because I'm kind of doing more in-depth research and actually seeing numbers, facts, data that show that Bulgaria is prospering. But I think the general mood is, I would say, fairly optimistic at best. And I'm talking about about young people.
I see. Well, Svetoslav, hopefully the data that you're seeing is correct, and indeed Bulgaria is on the path to prosperity. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for the Bulgarian perspective. And yeah, thank you. And hopefully the cooperation between the three C's will keep increasing. All the best.
Hopefully, yeah. All the best. Thank you for your time.